Putting the Autism Puzzle Pieces Together, Chapter 1, Brief History of Autism, video number 2, starting off with Bettelheim versus Renlund. Now, in the first video, I introduced these two individuals to you. One's Bettelheim, who practiced psychology even though he did not have the academic credentials and he was therefore a fraud, and he came up with the idea of, or popularized the idea of the refrigerator mothers, which assumed that the mother's lack of maternal affection is what was causing their child's autism. And then Dr. Bernard Renlund, who really was a psychologist, he basically destroyed, and the parent of an autistic basically destroyed Bettelheim's hypothesis. So anyways, as far as, so in this video I'm wanting to talk about, the long-term impact of the dispute between these two individuals. And so I'm wanting to start off with a quote by Dr. Renlund in the Health Counselor magazine, volume 3, number 6, June and July 1994, in which he says, quote, "Autism is a biological disorder, not an emotional illness. Refuse psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, and intensive counseling. These approaches are useless," unquote. Now, the big question is, why would Dr. Renlund totally turn on his own profession, by basically saying that, his own profession has absolutely nothing to, that can help his son. And it seems pretty, clear to me that, he still had a lot of resentment towards Bettelheim, because he basically, Bettelheim basically condemned his wife and all these other mothers, and basically, this has, much of Dr. Renlund's work has much to do with exonerating his wife from these horrible allegations, that as much as anything else. And so, the question is, to what extent, should we, follow this advice? Should we take it to the furthest extent to where we literally alienate the entire psychological community, which is an interesting concept considering the fact that the psychologists are the only ones who are actually qualified to diagnose autism. So you go to the psychologist to get your diagnosis, and then once the psychologist gives you your diagnosis, you're not supposed to have anything ever to do with them ever again. And I find this, concept, perplexing, to be quite frank, and so, but the thing is, to what extent is his, is this statement being applied, whether or not he intended it to be applied to the extent that it is today, just to what extent is it being applied, and it became clear to me when I started attending my autism support group, and they started talking about, all these things that autistics can't do. We can't, manage our own stress. We need to have all these second and third party interventions. We need these accommodations and all this other stuff. And I'm not going to, discount, the benefit that a lot of autistics have. Especially younger autistics. A 3-4-year-old, teaching them stress management. I don't care, neurotypical autistic or whatever, teaching stress management to any 3 or 4-year-old is kind of a tough task. And so I'm not totally dismissing the idea of, third-party interventions and accommodations for those autistics who need them. But the thing that about me is that, when I was 20 years old, I joined a codependency support group, a general purpose 12-step program for purposes of dealing with my codependency. And so I learned stress management, social skills, and conflict resolution, and all these other things that autistics are being told that they can't possibly learn. And it became very clear to me that these autistics have totally bought into this idea when I was trying to explain to the group, when this subject was coming up, that I learned these skills in the past, and basically I was treated like a quack for even suggesting that they should open their mind to the possibility that they might be able to develop these skills themselves. I wasn't even saying I guarantee you can develop these skills. If you want to develop these skills, you can develop. No, I have never said that. I said open your mind to the possibility that you might be able to develop the skills. And for that, I was labeled a quack because I'm going against everything that they're being told about autism. Now, whether or not the autism, experts are intending to send this message to the autistics, it is what the autistics have heard loud and clear, is that they are so neurologically defective that they are incapable of doing anything without second or third party intervention and special accommodations. And this really came to a head in I believe it was July of 2010, when we were discussing the subject of, or was it 2010? Okay, we were discussing the subject of autistics being shot by police officers, unarmed autistics being shot by police officers, because the police officers thought that they were dealing with somebody who was possibly high on drugs and was having a complete psychotic break. Okay, and so a training officer from the Mesa Police Department. Mesa is a suburb of Phoenix, and so this police officer, training officer, was brought in to talk to the autistics about about the situation and explaining to autistics what the police officer is trying to do, and explaining the whole thing, and also a psychologist, Dr. Hubbard, who has not only an autistic son but an autistic grandson, and so that they were brought in to talk to us about these particular issues. And one of the things that the autism community has come up with is this idea that that autistics should carry around a little card with them saying I'm autistic, and if they're confronted by a police officer, kind of like the medical alert bracelets, okay, and so if they're ever confronted by a police officer, they just pull the card out and the police officer is supposed to know what to do. Well, this training officer said point blank that it's not going to work in practice because the police officers are not trained psychologists, okay? That they're trained to do the best that they can, but at the same time, just holding up a card that says that I'm autistic, that really, they're really not qualified to really understand what that is, and if they're going to train them to deal with autistics, what about all these other mental disorders, okay? You're going to require, every police officer to take 4 to 6 years of psychology before they can ever go onto the street, and so it's just, simply not realistic. And then, something else, that I was, considering later on, is, okay, so an autistic is being confronted by a police officer, it's at night, it's a little bit dark, the autistic is totally stressing out, okay, the police officer, is trying to give him commands, and, or her commands, and so that they're thinking to themselves, okay, well, the question is, will they be able to think, oh, I've got this card in my pocket, okay, I need to, show them the card. Will the autistic be clear thinking enough in order to be able to even think about the fact that there's a card in his pocket or her pocket, that needs to be presented? Okay, that's the first thing. And then if they do it, okay, once again, it's a dark alley, and then so the police officer is a little bit nervous because of how this individual is acting, and then all of a sudden this individual goes like this. What's the police officer going to do? At least draw his or her firearm, okay, which is then going to escalate the situation even further, okay. Now, so what the autistic has to be able to do is announce to the police officer that that I have a card in my pocket. I'm reaching my back pocket, to grab my wallet to show you this card. Of course, if the autistic was able to explain that, then the autistic wouldn't need the card in the first place. Okay, so basically, it's the entire autism community taking the approach of this, that an autistic is simply incapable of handling this situation without second or third party interventions or without special accommodations, and so they come up with this idea without realizing that it is completely unrealistic that everything will go as planned, and so it was during this time I was interjecting, with the idea that, okay, well, instead of putting it all on the police officers, why not teach autistics how to handle this situation themselves, how to manage their stress, what they can do to manage their stress. And once again, not one person, would stand behind me. Basically, it was after that meeting I was flat out called a quack by one of the members because I was having the audacity to propose something that nobody else believes, that nobody else supports. Well, actually, there's a lot of people that support my idea. The thing is, they're not part of the autism community, okay? They're part of the human being community, okay? And if we could deal with autistics as if they are first and foremost human beings and applying these principles that help other human beings, to adapt them to help autistics, autistics might actually have a better chance of being able to deal with situations like this. But as long as the entire approach to dealing with autistics is they're a bunch of hapless, helpless neurological defects that are wired differently, that they basically wipe out any chance of actually finding solutions, of adapting solutions that work for everybody else to working with autistics, and that's something that I'm going to get into as this book develops, as far as understanding, okay, what can actually be done to improve for an autistic to improve their own quality of life to whatever extent that they can. Again, I'm not making guarantees that every autistic can do these to the level that I can. However, I would ask that they open their minds to the possibility that they might, and that the parents of younger autistics might open their minds to the possibility that some of these suggestions that I'll be presenting, as well as the teachers, open their minds to the possibility that some of the ideas I'm presenting could be adapted to an age-appropriate solution for their child, that their child can either be taught or that the parents or teachers can implement on behalf of the child. And so, thank you.